Good morning. This is Jason Dean coming live at you again for another Film Fanatic show live here at Film Fanatic headquarters. And so, hope everyone's doing good. It is Sunday at 11:22, the first day of uh, the fall, the actual beginning of the fall season, technically. So yeah, hope everyone's doing good. I am excited. I'm going to go see a movie tonight that I didn't really hear. Kind of just came up. It's this new movie called The Substance, and it stars Demi Moore, of all actresses. I remember being enamored with Demi Moore when I was a kid, and I loved her. I loved her in different films and TV shows. She was actually in a Tales from the Crypt episode I remember when I was a kid. She was in a ton of movies, and she was a regular actress, real high prolific actress. But apparently, she's in this new movie called The Substance, which is by this directed by a French female director. And I just heard about it recently, and I heard it's a pretty intense movie, and that it's like full on body horror, if you will. It's supposed to be really, well, for all intents and purposes, kind of a fucked up movie, and a movie that is not a movie that is suggested that you don't eat while you watch. You don't eat food while you watch it. So we'll see. I've been kind of disappointed with movies lately as far as new movies go, and movies that have gone to see in the theater. So I'm hoping this will be good. I know don't know much about it, but I've checked some sources, and for the most part, from what I hear, that this is definitely a good movie, or at least I've heard it described more as like almost more of an experience. So we'll see what happens. I love going to the movies, so I just heard about this movie, Substance, a week or two ago, and I just saw that it's actually playing here in town. So I'm gonna go check it out. And so I'll do a review for for the substance, whether it was good or not. But I usually that's usually what I do at the show, and I've said many times, but typically when I do these shows, I I always try to focus on movies that I've seen. Most of But 98% of the shows that I've had and that I do are all on movies that I actually own on Blu-ray and or DVD, but mostly Blu-rays now. I've just kind of switched over, and so that's usually kind of been my main thing. Um, it's my that's where I like to put my money as far as like buying physical media, if you will. But all of the movies that I review, I watch, and then if I love the movie, I tend to watch. I will watch movies over and over again, certain films, and then it also goes for, obviously, which has been the thing lately. It's all been mostly centered on new movies that I've never seen before, so it's been super cool. Um, that is, that's the main kind of focus, for me. And then when I go to the movies, which is pretty sporadic, but when I go to the movies, I still love going to the movies. But when I go, I tend to, before I get into that, most of the shows I do, pretty much all the shows I do, I talk about movies that I love, and I don't usually do, full on negative reviews or that I own. But I kind of I make an exception to that rule when I have gone to a movie in the theater, and I usually will review that movie, thumbs up or thumbs down. So stay tuned. There'll be a review for The Substance coming up sometime this week, maybe tomorrow or whatnot. So looking forward to that. I again, I've kind of lost a lot of faith in newer films. So I've been, watching all kinds of old shit, and to me, that's just where it's at. But I haven't fully given up. So that being said, I watched a movie last night that I was literally. I bought this movie, didn't know anything about it, totally went and bought it cold. I was in Augusta, Maine, like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and then I wanted to go to Bull Moose to make more of a trip out of it since it was like an hour drive. And I was going to go to the Waterville Bull Moose, which was about 20 minutes, 15 minutes away from where I was at. But then when I went to punch in my directions on my GPS, this other bull moose came up in the feed, and it was a bull moose I had never been to, and it was in Lewiston, Maine, and it was literally a half hour away from where I was at that point. So it was a difference of like 10 minutes. Do I just go to the place I've been to a billion times, or do I just check out this new place, this new location? Because maybe it'll be a surprise. Maybe it won't be that great. But I was like, well, and it was during vacation week. It was like a week or two before school started, and before I was back to my kind of normal schedule. So I was like, fuck it, and so that's what I did. And the thing that's really cool about Bull Moose, which I love, which is not like back when regular franchises were franchise shops, if you will, like Tower Records or Bull Moose or Tower Records or like Strawberry Music was another one. There was a few other kind of chain music shops or like physical media shops. They were kind of always they were always that kind of the same. Once you went into one, they were kind of all the same. But the thing that I love about Bull Moose is that each shop that I've gone to or that I go to is pretty different from each other. Like some of them have better selections in certain genres or styles of film or music, and that's one of the things I love about it. They each kind of have a little bit of their own personality. So I went to the one in Lewiston, and I was really blown away by that shop. I was super impressed. It's huge. It's like a huge, almost like a warehouse, and it was a big place. It's almost as big as the one in Portland. So I was really excited. So I bought a bunch of movies that I never seen before, and today's show is on this movie that I never seen before. Took a chance, and that is called. It's called "What Have They Done to Your Daughters?" It is an Italian giallo film. It was directed by Massimo Dallamano, who is or who was an Italian director. This came out in 1972. Beautiful packaging. This was put out by Arrow. Arrow is one of the big kind of boutique labels out there that specialize in mostly, all things exploitation, the good shit. And I've said many times when I buy it, especially if I buy a movie I've never seen before, because I realize, okay, I'm spending dropping some cash on something I've never seen before. So, but if it has a lot of special features, that will be a good selling point. And there's a ton of special features on there. I just watched this last night for the first time, and I just started. Well, barely got into the special features section of this. And this is definitely a primetime Giallo film. I have covered a lot of Giallo films on this channel. It's interesting because it's a genre that I saw a lot of Italian horror films when I was a kid, and I saw a lot of films that were that are considered more of the giallo style. But I never knew or realized that there was a term for it. I just looked at them when I was a kid, seeing a lot of these movies on VHS or even like late night, horror or late night movie marathons. I never knew the terms or say the subgenres that are, kind of part of the branch of the tree of horror, in the world of exploitation. I never was like aware of that. So it was like fairly, maybe, well, it was a few years ago I started realizing, oh, there is this kind of unique style, and it's called Giallo. And I was like, okay, I have seen a lot of these kinds of films, but it was interesting. So, and I've talked about this a lot. I've reviewed a lot of Giallo films. I've been buying them. It's kind of grown for me to be one of my favorite genres in the horror world, in the exploitation world. It's like a subgenre of it. The Giallo style is very, very much, I think has, and I think as of late has had a real big influence. But it's a very influential style of filmmaking. It's very distinct. It's very unique. And basically, with the with the Giallo style, it's very much an Italian kind of trademark style. It's very much it's a real Italian experience. And what Giallo is basically it's essentially like a murder mystery story told through this unique kind of lens. It's basically the big influence I think on a lot of Giallo films, where the Italians got their ideas from, is kind of the classic kind of English or British Agatha Christie story, the murder mystery structure. Classic Sherlock Holmes stories and what have you. And then also I think Alfred Hitchcock. They also took a lot of influence from Alfred Hitchcock. So it's kind of a combination of like kind of the Italians' answer to the murder mystery style or genre. Taking great influences from that kind of Agatha Christie murder mystery style or story, and I think Hitchcock also, Alfred Hitchcock. And it's basically, there's always, in your classic Giallo films, there's always a level of mystery. There's always a lot of suspense. They're essentially thrillers. There is always a big emphasis on kind of the investigative narrative of the story. There's always a series of these mysterious killings or people disappear, and then there is this level of where you have the main characters kind of investigating the crimes. And there's always usually there are always some form of police investigation. There is also typically a one of the tropes of Giallo is there's always like a gloved killer. There's always like basically a psychopath on the loose, and the typical thing that you see is a lot of the methods of the killing or killings are through a knife or blade or an axe, and the killer always has like gloves or leather gloves, and you never get to see the killer. There's always typically the plot reveal around who the killer is towards the end of the film or the third act of the film. And there's also and a lot of Giallo films are very graphic and very gory, very extreme kind of violence at times. And there's also um, a very sexual aspect to the films. A lot of the films have a lot of kind of sex, or there's also like this. Usually, that's seems to be a thing where it's tied into the story. There's like a psychosexual element, and so it's very interesting. There's always you have all of those kind of components, and also the giallo and just the Italian world of cinema. There is this kind of heightened reality that you see. There's a lot of real beautiful camera work. There's a lot of care and love put into the lighting of a scene. Everything is kind of popping and kind of They're usually grounded. It's set in reality, but everything is kind of heightened. So there is a very glamorized look to the film. Everything is very beautiful and really, well, extremely eye popping. So there's all of those elements. So Giallo is just an amazing, uh, genre. And I've been buying a lot of these films, and again, I've seen a lot of these movies before. I kind of knew, I guess, what they were or what you would call them, but I've really come into trying to learn about this really unique style. There were two movies recently that came out that were greatly influenced by um, James Wan, who directed a movie a few years ago, which I can't remember the name of it. Who James Wan directed the Saw movies, and he just put out a movie a few years back, like maybe 2 3 years ago. It was really Giallo inspired, I thought. Also, the last Ty West film in the stunning conclusion for the X franchise, Maxine, which just came out, which was starring Mia Goth, which is just uh, a killer movie, greatly Giallo inspired. All of those tropes are in both of those movies, so it was very cool to see that. And Giallo's influenced many other films, and so I've been really diving in and learning about this kind of genre, this subgenre, and I've been really loving it. It's one of my two favorite genres in the world of exploitation. My first being the slasher genre, and I probably at this point I have to say like the giallo style is like my favorite. There's so many other kind of subgenres within that world, so there's so much variety. You have the almost films that take on where they're almost like black comedies too. So there's all kinds of things. But I have to say, I never saw this movie before. What have they done for your daughters? I have to say that hands down, this is the best giallo film I've ever seen. This movie is automatically on the top list. Top, if I was to make, if I had to do it today and make a top tier list of some of my favorite movies of all time, this would be in it. This movie, I was completely blown away by this movie. It's um, it's such a great detective story. That's the thing that I loved about it the most. Is there's a series of these murders that take place, and as the kind of the central characters are kind of investigating this initial crime, there are more victims that are found, and you see that this is not it's not an isolated event, and it's actually this big thing, and that there are multiple parties involved in the movie, and it almost kind of goes into where there's like a conspiracy going on. And it is so well done, and from like the first 5 or 10 minutes, you're just I found myself totally drawn into this movie. Very much. If you love, like I said, if you like really good suspense films, if you really love thrillers, murder mystery films, you can't get any better than this. Like it's right up. I'm a huge Hitchcock fan. I love the whole. I'm a huge fan of thrillers. This is like right up there, and this is in the giallo style. This is the best one I have ever seen. I have to say, like it's just incredible. The cinematography is just incredible. The music score on this in this film is the best music I've heard in a giallo film. One of the best film scores that I've ever heard. It's so funky and just colorful, so colorful, so rich, so cinematic. It's spooky and it's scary and it's beautiful. Really great juxtaposition with different themes. Again, that's another thing that I love about this movie is it's a very intense scary movie in a lot of ways. And it's at its core, it's just such um, a well done thriller. It's so suspenseful, great chase scenes. There's a level of where it's not really predictable. Just incredible. The transfer of this film on Blu-ray is spectacular. Like it's just gorgeous. And there are all these scenes in this film of where there's not necessarily dialogue, but the music and the way it's shot, the way the scenes are shot, and the way it's set up, um, you just can't wait to see what's going to happen next. And within about 5 or 10 minutes of this film, I was in it to win it. And I was like, this is like some of the best shit ever. That was like my feeling and kind of response to this film. It's an Italian movie, and I did not know anything about this movie. I never saw it before. Don't know anything about the director. Um, and again, I finished it. I watched it last night, and I hadn't started, and I just started before I went to bed and stuff. I just started to watch some of the special features, and there's a ton of special features on here. There's like this whole thing is all special features. There's all interviews with people who worked on the film and the composer. So I was super stoked. Just an incredible film. I would just for being face value, I would just recommend this film to people to like. This is just a an awesome film. One of the best foreign movies I have seen in a very long time, and I didn't know before I watched it. I didn't even realize, or didn't really realize what year this came out. And I was just like, after I watched it, I looked at the date, and I was like, wow, this came out in 1972. Crazy, crazy. And again, this is a classic example of they truly do not make these movies anymore. I think if they were to remake this movie, they would try to they would tie in these like gratuitous and paint by numbers jump scares, and it would just ruin the kind of the connective tissue of this movie, where it just keeps you at the edge of your seat. It would be if they were to retell this movie now, it would be filled with lots of predictable twists and turns, and that's what I loved about this movie. Is it's kind of a straightforward film. It's basically about these these murders that happen, and the law enforcement and some of the main characters trying to get to the bottom of what's going on. But the way it's told, the structure, the way it's shot, um, the pacing is brilliant. I mean, it's amazing. Definitely the best Giallo movie I have, and I was super excited. Was totally blown away by this, and I can't recommend this movie enough. This movie is the bomb. So thanks again, and we will see you next time. Peace.